Welcome to the Microschools Show, your window on the global microschools movement. Whether you're a teacher with a dream to build a school of your own or a parent looking for a school that will suit your amazing kid, you're sure to be inspired by the creativity and innovation of our guests. I'm your host, Dr. Mara Leineberger. The Microschools Show was launched to feature guests from all over the globe who have championed personalized learning for students by building a microschool of their own, as well as to spotlight some of the key players in the microschools movement. Today, my special guest is Philippa Fabry, one of the founders and a current director of Elson Academy, which is in Port Elizabeth, South Africa. So today, another global school. Elson Academy is a non-profit independent school in Port Elizabeth, and it was started by three ladies, two of whom are still the directors today. They saw a need for a school that could cater to children who struggled to thrive in the larger school environments. After much preparation, planning, and praying, Elson Academy opened its doors to accept 13 pupils for the very first time in January of 2006. The school has since moved to a vibrant artistic hub of Central and now occupy Old Holy Rosary Covenant School building, which was vacant for some time. It was one of the director's school many years ago when she was a pupil there, so it definitely feels like home. Elson Academy has expanded and developed into 4 schools within one: a primary school, a high school, a vocational school, and an online learning center. The common thread that ties the different departments to each other is that of inclusion. There are simply no limits to learning at Elson. Welcome to the show, Philippa. I am so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, and thank you for that awesome introduction.
You're
It's
welcome.
so nice to be able to share a common passion. I think you and I share a common passion.
We do. And just to let our listeners know, I met Philippa in a new social media platform called Clubhouse. For me, Clubhouse represents this incredible opportunity to meet, find, and connect with global leaders in all kinds of aspects of the education global education shift, or some are calling it a revolution. But I was so excited to meet you and to have this chance to interview you for our show, because what we're trying to do is to raise awareness so that folks realize this is not some little isolated thing in the United States, right? Philippa, you've had your school open since 2006. So tell us a little bit about Elson and why you chose to start this school.
I will, and I'll try and be brief, but generally I can talk forever about my school. So interrupt me at any time. Mara, my background is special needs. I was a mainstream teacher, foundation phase trained, and I wanted to study more about how to help children with learning disabilities, learning barriers, which I did. And then I wanted to start my family, so I decided to start up a remedial practice from home. And I was seeing children, once or twice a week, and they were coming to me for extra lessons and remedial therapy. And I could see that, seeing them for 45 minutes twice a week just wasn't enough to sort of bridge the gap between what they knew and what they needed to know to be able to progress in the classroom. And I was having parents saying to me, why don't you just start a school? Can you not just tutor my child full time? We're happy to pull them out of school. They're not really making much progress. They're not happy. And I guess the opportunity was just there, a door open for me. And I grabbed it with both hands and just threw myself into this space of being an entrepreneur. All of a sudden now I wasn't a teacher anymore. I was now being able to solve a problem. And that was that we didn't have enough options for parents who needed a different way of educating their children. So I think we've just been blessed with the most amazing people that have come with me along the way. I mean, it's been a team effort. I've had ladies, who supported me. Like you said, it has been a journey. It was 16 years ago that we started. We're now sitting at 138 pupils, and we've been able to look at options again. Not everybody learns the same way, and we thought, all right, we're just going to cater for children who had learning barriers, learning disabilities. But then we found that, but even even more so, children have, you know, more severe challenges in that they weren't even able to manage with all that remedial support and everything that we were offering. Even still, the work was too challenging. So then we decided, all right, we needed to offer a more skills-based curriculum. Let's go and find a curriculum that wasn't as academic, wasn't as fast-paced, and didn't sort of narrow things down to subjects. We didn't want to only offer those certain subjects. Not every child is going to be able to do maths. Not every child is going to be able to do history, geography, etc. So we then did the vocational route, and we started with 3 children, and we've now grown to, I think we're on about, I don't want to lie, we could be on 13 or 14. And then, Mara, so we branched off into the online learning space as well. And thank goodness we did, because COVID hit. And in 2018, we launched our online learning center. Again, children were wanting a less traditional approach. They don't want to have to wear school uniform. They don't want to have to abide by all the silly rules and assemblies and after school sport. They really were not interested in the school space. They just want to be able to learn, teach themselves. And so we launched that. And so it is 4 schools in one. We have the primary, the secondary, the learning center, and the vocational phase. And yeah, I guess with COVID and having to homeschool children, you know, we were able to go online quite easily. So we didn't really lose any teaching time. Our students were able to continue with teaching online. We used Google Classroom. We set up, you know, we had email addresses. So we've been very, very blessed. And I must admit, you know, school is a community. You know, you've got your faculty, you've got your parents, you've got your students, you've got grannies and grandpas. And I think we have been able to keep small. And I think in keeping small, that micro school, you have that family-like atmosphere. And that's what I must admit, when people walk onto campus and they come and they meet us, you know, in the offices at the front, they say they just feel the love.
Like you've
they
said
feel
so many,
like a person, you know.
yeah, you've made so many incredible points that I couldn't have even prepped you to make, that are things I think about. One, that building a school is an entrepreneurial activity, and that, you know, you have to adopt that mindset to have it actually be able to run. And I think your school is a testament to the fact that you are running it as a business. Otherwise, you would not be able to maintain and to grow to 138 kids. And this ability to look to see what is the next thing that will suit my clients, your students, your families. They are your clients, and you have grown your programming to meet the needs. When I talk with my clients, we call that the pain point. You totally illustrated that beautifully. Families are in pain because their children want and need something different than the local public school or the local private school. And there's nothing
100%.
wrong with that.
100%. Those pain points are, and I've heard them all. I want a small class. I want my child to be seen as a person, not as a number in the class. I want to be able to connect with my child's teacher as soon as I need to. I don't want to have to wait. I want to be able to reach the teacher and have her reach out to me. I want that individual attention. I want that personal approach. I want my child's needs to be addressed. And I want to be able to be supported. I want our family with the child with special needs to have the support that we need. It's not an easy space to be in. And generally people are not always educated in terms of what is autism spectrum disorder, what is a general anxiety disorder, what is dyslexia, what is dyscalculia. And so we've been able to use things like our Facebook pages to run training for parents. We've been able to run workshops online because we're not doing parent meetings on campus. We have, but it hasn't been easy. So I think we want to hear what parents need, and we want to be able to address that need as much as we can. The parent is the customer, but the child is actually why we're doing this.
Yeah, it's it's like you're inside my brain, Philippa, because one of the things that I do when I work with people who aspire to be a school owner like you is talk about the fact that we have to market in two ways when we own a micro school. We're going to serve the child, so we have to create a space and place and programming that meet the very
Mm,
specific needs of that student and the desires of that student. But we market to the family too. And sometimes what the parent wants and what the child wants don't exactly match. So there's a real nuance to that.
mm,
I think,
mm,
you're doing your work on your Facebook page. I talk with my clients about that being a really effective marketing strategy. If the
mm,
parents are having problems, give them support. Begin to help them address how to work with those challenges that they're having with their child, and they will
mm,
very quickly realize that you're someone that they can trust, and trust to do the educational aspects with their child. It's not, I'm sure that you aren't necessarily thinking about it as marketing, but it's a brilliant way to market your micro school.
mm. I think exactly. I think there are two main things have really challenged me in terms of my expertise. The one is marketing, and the other one is fundraising, because I haven't studied marketing. I haven't even studied business. I haven't even studied budgets and things like that. So I've had to self teach. Is that the right word? I've had to self teach myself all the way through how to do the things that I'm not confident in doing. So I've had to learn all kinds of ways to market, so that nobody wants to have to take your child to a special needs school. Nobody wants to have to take your child out of a big mainstream school and look at an alternative. So we've had to make the school or that negative stigma attached to remedial. We've had to try and do something about that. And also say to parents, look at us like we're a crutch. We're giving you a step up, and you might need that step up just for a year, but you might need it for right all the way through until your child graduates. It all just depends on what your child needs, and we will walk that journey with you. As soon as we think that your child isn't being challenged enough or isn't being pushed enough, we will say to you, listen, I think you need to now branch off and go and try a different environment, because maybe they've outgrown us. Maybe they need something more. So the marketing is so important, Mara, but also fundraising, because again, running a school costs money. You need to pay your teachers. If you're wanting good teachers, you need to pay them properly. So we're also a registered nonprofit. We're not a company. We're a registered nonprofit. We're a charity, meaning that everything that comes in goes straight out again. There are no shares, there are no trusts. There's an in and an out. So fundraising, being able to try and get very kind, generous people to help us, especially during COVID, when parents were struggling to pay fees because they lost their businesses, they were struggling. So it's just being able to listen to what your parents are saying, listen to what your so-called customers need, and try your best to accommodate and work together. And I think that relationship between your parents, your children, your faculty, your community is so important. You can't work in a silo. I can't shut my office door and say, right, I'm just doing fundraising and marketing today. I'm not going to listen to teachers. I'm not going to listen to children. I'm not going to listen to parents. I can't do that. I've got to be able to be flexible, be able to talk when a teacher's coming in and she's got a problem, or talk to a parent when they phone and they've got a problem. I think as somebody who runs a small school, you've got to be able to listen to what they need and to act, be versatile, be flexible, and just be there as support. I think bottom line, we are supporting families who are looking for a different way to educate their children.
Well, I love hearing the sort of your viewpoint as the director of a school. I think you will inspire many people who are starting out as a small school. And we were talking before I hit record on this session that in South Africa, that what many of us are calling a micro school, you would call a cottage school, correct?
Yep.
So when somebody starts in a small in their home or in a very small space with just a few kids, I have adopted the term lean startup that comes from Silicon Valley in the US. This idea that you start with a minimum viable product. So you think you have an idea of what's needed in the community, you find a few families to begin with you, and you build the programming as you go along with those families based on the kind of feedback that you're getting as you go along. I mean, it sounds like you did that, that you've added on to, you started with a small group, but as the school has grown, you've added programming to suit the changing needs of the students and the families.
Exactly.
I think what we'd love to hear, because we've talked a lot about your school as a business. I think people will really want to hear about the programming. What's a day like? Now, I know with COVID it's different, but you can give us an idea of what was a day like before COVID, and maybe then a little bit how it's different now with students learning remotely, or maybe some of your students are back on campus. I don't know.
Actually, we're all back on campus. We've just structured the day that the students don't all leave en masse, that they staggered. So our break times, or when we have recess, we don't mix the departments together. We've got to keep everybody separate. So the day hasn't changed much. Look, we have check-ins where I'll give you an example. I was on check-in this morning. So the students come through the gates, they get their temperatures taken, and then they go through to the hall. There are 4 lines. Each teacher takes a line, and whichever department you're in charge of, the children will go to you. They'll stand apart. You'll record their temperature, and you'll ask them the questions, for the symptoms. And if they're all clear, they go through and, they join their group, and then school starts. We don't have sport in the afternoons. There isn't a lot of walking around. We've tried to keep the students in class. The teachers rather walk to them. So there isn't a lot of we don't want any cross contamination. And then obviously recess, they each have their areas and they don't mix when they're outside. The students have to maintain their 1 meter distance, and they have to wear their masks all the time. We do have breaks when they can take their masks off, but we make sure then that it's in a safe environment and that they're outside. We've had to not start up the sporting program after school. So unfortunately, we don't do any contact sport. The children go home straight after school, also just for safety reasons. And we also had an aftercare for students who needed to stay after school and be supervised until mom and dad could fetch them from work, which sometimes was around 4:30, 5. But again, we'd rather not put ourselves at risk. So we are not doing that at the moment. The students go home straight after school. So there have been things that we've had to stop, but we've tried to keep things going as much as possible. The students need their friends, they need their teachers, they need their community, and we missed them when we were at lockdown, although we did the online schooling and we did the online things, we just realized that it's not, you can't expect a child who is sitting at home where there is no internet, there is no device, mom and dad are not able to help. You can't have that child and then another child where they've got all the internet they need. Mom and dad are both there working from home, so they've got all the support and they've got the devices. It's just unfair. So, we were trying to borrow data, we were trying to borrow devices to give children opportunity to try and level the playing field as much as possible. But it wasn't easy, even though the teaching was happening, but not necessarily the learning was happening. And we felt when they came back after that very long I think we were locked down for about, I can't even remember now, was it about 5 weeks, where we were all at home. We felt that those students may not have even, what our teachers were doing wasn't being learned. There just wasn't the support coming in from home. So yeah, we had to pick up, and often reteach a lot of things. So it was definitely a learning experience for us. I really hope we never have to go through that again, simply because it was challenging. children need other children. They need their emotional support. And it was quite stressful. I think from the parents' side too, it was very stressful.
Well, it sounds like, I mean, I know that all of the schools that I work with, none of them, other than lockdown, when they were legally required to close, when there were still regulations regarding small gatherings, they were able to remain open because they had the
The numbers
capacity
were
to have
small.
students in small groupings. It sounds like you were
Mm.
too. I think that's
Yeah.
one of the powers. I know here in the US, many schools have reopened, but the ones that have not literally cannot because the classroom sizes don't allow for the proper social distancing. And there just have been the sort of implementation of COVID style education has been so uneven in this country. I'm guessing it's been similar in South Africa too. That, you know, you talked a little bit about the inequities of access to technologies to support remote learning. We've seen that in so many ways, but this notion of small learning groups, you know, it's funny, our schools are having to do that, and I don't know if it's sinking in yet that this is actually better in so many ways. The smaller grouping of
Mm.
children, the ability to give
Mm.
more attention to that group that's right there. I don't know how our schools will transition, you know, when the crisis, when we've hit sort of a herd immunity and can have everybody go back to school and work. I don't know whether the big school
Mm.
districts will remember this and keep the changes that they've implemented, or whether people will just go right back to what they've done. I'm
Mm.
kind of guessing it's going to be the latter.
I hope that the hybrid learning, you know, where you can teach certain things, but then there's consolidation happening, you know, off campus, so that there's more face time happening, where it's really valuable face time, where there are rich discussions and there's time to consolidate and there's time to revise. And then, you know, that whole flipped classroom thing, where at home the child is then, you know, able to get on with other things. So we've had to embrace the fact that we can't have control over what happens at home. We can only do so much, and what we do at school then has to be of such great quality that whatever happens at home we don't have to worry about, because what we're doing enough where we are. And just hope that the parents, you know, appreciate what we're doing at school, and they can just support as much as they can. That's all we can really ask for.
So tell us a little bit about what does it now, once the students are picked up by their receiving teacher, what is a day like? Does your micro school function similarly to a regular school? I mean, do the kids have specific contents that they're studying, or is there more personalized learning? What's sort of the teaching and learning look like when you get into a classroom?
Yeah, well, it's very much what would happen in a traditional school. I mean, we follow the same curriculum. The children have their textbooks. We follow the government curriculum, which is set by the state. All we do is we accommodate special needs using that curriculum. So we might not go as fast. Our pace might be slightly slower. We might be able to spend more time on a certain concept or skip out another concept. The subjects are the same. It's just, I think our approach is different. It is more flexible. You know, if you look at our classrooms, you'll see our desks are not in rows, you know, like a traditional classroom. We would be clustered, the desks would be clustered, or there would be cushions on the floor, or there might be therapy balls for the children to sit on. So we look at how the child learns, and if they prefer to lie on the floor and do their work rather than in a desk, then that's absolutely fine. If a child needs to be sitting near the door because maybe they're anxious and they want to rather be near the door, that's where they're allowed to sit. It's flexible and we accommodate, and it's all about inclusion. So yes, it's a structured day. You have the same lessons as you would have in a normal school. So many hours must be spent on math, so many hours must be spent on language, so many hours must be spent on social science, etc. And that's how I think it's because it's structured, we are able to move a lot faster through the curriculum if we need to. And then the flip side is if we are needing to go slower and skip out certain things, we are also able to do that too. At the moment, we're sitting with test week, which because our term finishes, we have 4 terms. Our first term was started in January, and we're finishing term 1 on the 30th of March. So this is test week now, where the students come in, they write their tests, and then they go home. Because so many of our students require a scribe, they need a reader, they might need a separate venue. So we've been able to accommodate those concessions with our staff by having them just come in to write and go. So not everybody comes in at the same time. They come in, there are sessions that they come in for, and then they go. Then the next session comes in, they do their writing, and then they go. So yeah, it's in some ways it's very different to a traditional school, but in other ways it's the same. We do the same assessments.
Classes, are they smaller? Do you have
Oh,
fewer
yes.
students per educator?
Oh, yes. So our biggest class is 14.
Okay.
Our numbers, our teacher pupil ratio, I would say, is about 8 students to every 1 adult at the moment, which is very low.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a way to have children be seen, heard, understood, valued, and all of that. So I would imagine, are your students grouped together by age group or by ability or some other way? How are students?
Yes, in grades. So they're in classes, and they move through the classes. So they have a year, and then we write exams, and they progress through to the next grade. So there are times that a child might not be ready to progress, and then they have to repeat the year. There was also something I wanted to say in terms of the learner support. Each learner gets, I think you call them an IEP. In the States, we call it a learner support plan, where they get their goals that are structured, and they may have to work on specific goals. Some are academic, some are emotional, some are behavioral, some are social. And every child's report or every child's plan gets discussed twice a year. And we bring the parents into those discussions so that we can then plan for the next 6 months on what we need to change. Do we need to add a goal? Do we, can we move on from that goal? Can we tick that goal off and say it's achieved? So I think a personalized, I don't really like the word individualized educational plan. It's more of a personalized educational plan that gets worked out for every student.
Yeah. So what I'm kind of hearing is that being in this setting, if I'm not able to learn the content at the grade level, I can stay and repeat that. But in some ways, I'm thinking there's not as much of a stigma around that, because so your classes will have students of different ages because it's more based on a set of skills, and you're passing through that set of skills. Is that a better description? So you have multiple ages within a classroom based on who's able to learn the content.
We've also had situations where the child is so proficient with math. Let's say he's sitting in grade 4, but he's so proficient with math that he prefers to learn math with the grade 5s. So when it's maths, he then moves across and does maths at the grade 5 level, and then comes back to do English with the grade 4s. So I almost think of it as, I've seen this diagram of a hamster cage with all these tunnels, and the tunnel, the see-through tunnel leads to the next little part of the cage, and then into the next little part of the, and all the tunnels are interleading. So a child might also move from the traditional academic stream. They might move into the vocational stream. They don't often come back to the academic once they've gone to the vocational, but they can certainly move, not like it, and come back. The same as the learning center. They can go and try out the learning center, see how it suits them, and if they're not happy, they can come back. So they need to find their best learning environment in order to thrive and be able to progress. That's why our hashtag is no limits to learning, because You can never say, oh, I just want my child, if I can just get my child through primary school, I'd be happy. Or if I can just get my child through, grade 9, I'll be happy. But just don't stop, keep pushing. And you'll be surprised at how far the child can actually go with the right support.
Yeah. I'm sure you're going to be surprised when I tell you we're already almost at 30
I'm sure. I'm
minutes.
sure.
We could probably talk
I told
for
you I can
hours
talk
and hours.
forever.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're going to wrap up the show for today, but maybe if we get questions, we'll do another episode and do a follow-up. If you have been listening to the interview today and you want to get in touch with Philippa, please reach out to her at Eslen's website, which is www.elson.co.za. I'll have it down here in the bottom so you'll be able to read it. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or to talk about your microschool or the work that you're doing in the microschools movement, please reach out to me at mara@microschoolbuilders.com to set up an interview. And until next time, be well.